Qlik Dork back again today, my friends. I'm coming at you live like always from my Data Cathedral studios right here in sunny Gainesville, Georgia. And today the sun is shining through. I'm bringing you Dork Cast episode 38, and I am so excited because I'm moving. Today I'm moving not down the street to the bigger house that I've been jealous of all my life. I'm moving to the cloud today. I've got a friend with me today. His name is Walter Shpuntoff, and wait a second, that my agentic AI assistant is going crazy. It says that Walter, it says that you're a professional mover, but that can't possibly be right. Walter, what is it that you really do, my friend?
Well, I work with Qlik Professional Services, and I do a lot of work with customers around data management strategy,
Okay.
and in particular, in terms of just managing all of the data that you've been accumulating over time, and
Yep.
you're looking to move to cloud, and you accumulate a lot of baggage. It's kind of like, before you call the movers, generally you clean up your house and get rid of the junk, and we now have developed a QVD equivalent of that. So you can look at that storage layer and decide what has value and what doesn't.
Dude, were you following me in my last move? Because my wife and I probably had to spend 2 months, literally 2 months, cleaning out our basement and getting rid of stuff. Now, Walter, when I've moved like house to house, there's been times where I've had very little stuff when I was a young click dork. Didn't have
Mhm.
a lot. We basically fit it in the car, most of it. Borrow a friend's truck, carry our one or two pieces of furniture. Then there were times where we packed all the boxes. We did a lot of the moving ahead of time. And then I just hired movers to move my big pieces. When you're working with customers, moving in the cloud like me and my teammates are today, do you find that there's different customers, some who need a lot of help, some who just need a little help, some that need like a whole project plan of guidance?
Oh, absolutely. It's all over the board because really, with the theme of democratizing data,
Ooh, I
um,
like that. I'm going to write that one down. I'm gonna write that down before I even drink my drink. All
well,
right.
what's happened is that it used to be that, data was just the province of the data geeks. And now you
Hey, I
have
was one of those data geeks, and it was my province.
exactly. But now we have more and more people that are more business oriented,
Hmm.
or, they're just responsible for providing information to the business.
Okay.
And you don't necessarily have that deep background or even that history with the customer.
Okay.
Because when you start looking into these things, it's like you're suddenly a historian or an archaeologist going through and saying, wait a minute, here's something you're still using. You have no idea where it came from, but I know what it is.
Neat. That you're not going to judge me when you start looking at our team's data, right?
No,
Okay. Good. Good.
I'm
Good.
sure
Good.
I've
Good.
seen worse.
Because, dude, we are pack rats with some of our data. I'm not gonna.
Who isn't? Who isn't?
Now, when I was a customer of Qlik for years, one of the things for sure is you kind of get a suspicion that you're not using this, but you're not really sure if somebody else did this for a reason.
Yeah,
And so we just let it continue to accumulate and accumulate because we were afraid to ever delete anything.
right.
Do you find that that's kind of a situation with a lot of customers?
Oh, definitely. I was working with a customer about a month or two ago where we identified that they had this job that was taking a couple of hours a day, generating snapshots that were like 5 gigs a piece,
Okay.
and nothing was using it.
Well, that's always a good plan. Sometimes I tease sometimes in my videos when we're talking about moving data and stuff. Are you moving it just for the fun of moving it? And in that case, it looked like they probably were then, right? They had a job, they stopped needing that data, but the person generating the data was still just generating data away.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much. They had some ideas of things they were going to do with it, and then it was like it wasn't a priority anymore.
nice. So in order to help me move, you sent me an application before
Hmm.
that I ran, and dude, it was so easy. I pressed load, and the data was there. But when we go live and people see this, we'll pretend that it took me days and days of
Oh, yeah.
effort, so that my boss Hugo will buy the fact that when I was out just getting a suntan, I was really working hard. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen again.
I got to warn you, it's not always that easy because, whenever you're dealing with REST connectors
Mm-hmm.
and the repository and security, sometimes it gets downright ugly.
And so with mine, our situation was pretty easy. We had one tenant.
Right.
Would this, if I were to install this and I had multiple tenants, like I know many of our customers do, is there a little bit of configuration work that has to happen then in order to bring in multiple tenants?
It can be. This is really geared towards a single environment.
Okay.
So it can be a cluster or it can be an individual, machine like yours. But the whole thing is that it's all about which apps reside in that environment.
Okay. Gotcha.
And one of the potential gotchas is that when you configure this, and maybe I'm getting a little ahead here, but this is a very configurable tool.
Okay.
And when you configure it, you can have it go out and just find all of your folder connections and then just go crawling through them looking for QVDs.
Wow.
But if you have environments that are cross-connected,
Yep.
like you have some huge file store somewhere, you might not want to scan that because it can take a really long time if it's a deep directory structure.
Gotcha. So like in my case, I did it. I literally just went and pressed load script because I knew what my environment was in our cloud managed partner engineering environment. For others, there might be a little bit of talk and prep ahead of time, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the first things that I normally do on this is we'll take a look in the management console and take a look at all of your folder connections
Okay,
and just talk about them. Oh, what's this used for? Just things like that. And
right.
then, if it turns out that you only really need a certain amount of it, you can say, oh, I only want to scan these folder connections,
Okay.
as opposed to having it go out and figure out all this stuff.
You know that, and that's kind of what when I've had movers out, they go room by like they come ahead of time, not just on moving day. They go room to room to room. What are we moving? And my wife and I could say, oh, no, 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 we're not going to touch this room. We're not. Don't worry about this room. That's going
Mhm.
to be in a dumpster by the weekend.
Right.
So you do those same kind of things.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
when I look at this screen, I see all these different screens, and I'm guessing maybe there's like one or two tables of data that you load in order to get this,
Oh,
and
no.
you've broken out like one field per table on each screen.
Yeah, why don't you go to the data model viewer?
All right, let me see if I can remember how to do that. Okay, so you just want me to go to data model viewer.
Yep.
And
You just want to look under the covers.
holy smoly. Dude, so when this data was loading, you're bringing all of this data in. And it looks like there's a lot there. So we'll go back to the screen view rather than looking at the preview data.
Hmm.
But man, that this is really impressive. If I want to know the whole story about anything, whether it's business or getting ready to move, this associative engine is pretty powerful because you need all of this information to help the customer plan for their move to the cloud. Then that this could be overwhelming for others. It gets a data guy like me pretty excited, like, wow, I now have access to all this at my fingertips.
Yeah.
Um, Let me jump back to the sheets here.
Mhm.
And is this the first sheet or what sheet should
Now, you see there's a button all the way on the right side.
mm-hmm.
Click on
Jump to
that.
summary.
Mhm.
So you make life easy to always be able to get back to where we should be. I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
So these are just some high level metrics. So if you look over on the left side, you see you've got
Yep.
2000 QVDs.
Whew. I hand wrote every one of those.
And you can see you're taking up two tiles to the right. It's like almost 83 gigs.
Ooh. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff.
All right. So if you look down on the lower left of those tiles, you
Okay.
see unpublished app QVDs.
Yep.
So this is really geared towards a production environment. So these are some of the things you'd look at. So if this is a production server and you've got almost 700 QVDs that came from unpublished apps, that's an indicator your data governance is not where it needs to be.
So did those QVDs just do we drag or drop them somewhere?
Well, what you can do is if you actually click on that 695 number,
Okay.
all right, it's going to show you the details of what those QVDs are, how
Okay.
old they are. And if you look on that table, one column off the end, it says QVD is used.
Ooh.
So it'll tell you whether or not any of your current tasks, any of your current reload tasks are
Right.
actually referencing these QVDs.
Okay. And so
So
we've got some that were like literally 5 years old, is what you're saying,
yeah,
and not even used, just taking up space on our machine, collecting gigabyte dust,
yeah.
whatever bytes do on disks that sit in the data center somewhere forever.
And if you look
Wow.
at the title on that table,
Mm-hmm.
there's a subtitle and says it's using 32.6 gigabytes of storage space.
Choo.
All right. So you can actually filter on whether the QVD is used or not.
Okay.
So if you just click on the magnifying glass where next to the column heading over to the right and up.
This one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. None of these are.
Being used.
Wow. That can't be good. You know what? When I said I generated all those, it was probably my boss Hugo that generated a lot of these that weren't being used. He just tries to find busy work. He generates stuff, it not even being used. Wow, this is really crazy. This is really crazy. I love these. It's got one row of data. That's cool.
Oh,
Must be really, really valuable. That QVD must be really, really valuable.
actually, if you go back to the summary,
Okay. Ooh, look at that, man. I knew right where to go.
there you
That's a
go.
good user interface when I know where to go.
So if you look at the section on the right, you'll see potential issues and interests.
Okay.
You see that number 282, empty QVDs?
That can't be good. So
Those
can I
are,
click on that?
yeah.
Dude, I'm loving this. Okay.
Okay. Look at the number of rows.
0 rows.
Yeah. These are all QVDs that have no data in them.
Holy cow. Now, why are some of these yellow versus just white?
Ah, you see in the upper left-hand side, you see display type.
Yep.
Change that to source.
Okay.
So what that does is it pulls from the QVD header
Right.
where the QVD came from. So if you see something in yellow, it means, hey, I don't have access to the source of where this came from.
Okay.
So this is a QVD that came from somewhere else.
Okay.
It's on your server. It's been there for 3.5 years. It's not being used and it's got no data in it.
Okay. Now, there's times where I've used like an extract program to
Mhm.
extract QVDs so that I could reuse them. Would that be shown, or is this a case where this Blue Prism QVF app, I got rid of the app after I generated all the data out of it?
Yeah. And if it were um, an app that was done on the server, you would see the app ID.
Gotcha.
Because this,
Okay.
I can tell you right here, you can see that it was ClickSense Desktop. So this was a desktop app that you used or someone used to create these QVDs. It was
Yep.
probably some sort of code generator that was automatically extracting all of the tables in the schema.
Yep.
and some of them were empty, and it extracted them anyway.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That was something I definitely did a lot, where I would generate the QVDs on a desktop. So I had a copy of all of them and I would share them with people.
Mhm.
And apparently I was not smart enough to know there's nothing in there. Don't move those ones.
Right.
So, all right, wow. And so these are apps that would have been actually on the machine, but then they're gone at
Well,
some point.
those are the ones that are in white, means that I identified the source app. So if you
Okay.
scroll down a little bit more, you see down there the purchase order requisition lines in yellow.
Okay. Yep.
You see that's the app ID of the app
Okay.
that
So
generated it.
the app is there. There's still just 0 bytes of it.
Yeah. And if you happen to have something that came from Qlik view, it'll actually show up in sort of a pink color.
Oh man. So I should have used our exporter and the import module and brought some things out there so I could have seen some pink on there. Dude, this is fantastic. So you would when you do this with a customer, you would probably spend some time. Now let's go through these, right? Are
Hmm.
these important? Hey, let's not worry about this, or hey, we might have an issue here. You're going to find out that that source app isn't even there, or that you're doing things and there's no bytes, that you could have an exit script or something,
Right.
type thing.
Now,
Interesting. Okay.
some of the other things that can happen is you might have QVDs where you don't have the source app,
Yep.
but they're still being used.
Okay.
And
Like
that's one of those
calendars, master calendars, things like that.
master calendars. One of the ones that I've seen was at a customer site. There was a QVD. They had no idea what generated it. It was just the record types from Salesforce.
Okay.
I mean, it's just in a stable environment. It doesn't change very often, if
Yep.
ever. So someone just generated a QVD. It looked like it was about 4 or 5 years old. So you can't just go by age.
Right.
Just something's old doesn't mean it's not relevant anymore. And
Yeah. So
as an old guy, I have to make that plug.
yeah.
But
So I was kind of goofing around. I press load script. I'm ready to go. I think I'm ready to move today. There's really some work involved in this, in trying to go back and review what it is you're doing, and actually
right,
do some planning. How would I do this there? Do you need to regenerate and update this? Like this was 5 years old. Should this be regenerated? Could that be in an inline script? And I'm guessing something like that was they
mm,
extracted or they did an inline, generated something, and they just keep using it. And it might be a good time for them to say, oh, you know what? We generated that master calendar for 5 years of data, and we might want to regenerate that for
we're
another,
on year five.
right? Like, yeah, we hit the double digits for years. We need to, yeah, man, we got a problem now. We're going to 4 digits. So very cool stuff. So what would be the next thing? What would be the next thing after we've looked at empty QVDs? What would be the next logical step that you would take with customers as they're preparing to move to the cloud?
Okay. Well, first off, there are a couple things that might cause issues
Okay.
when you move to cloud. And you can see in that middle tile on the right, it says has attached files.
Okay.
Now in cloud, you can't attach a file.
And what does attached files mean?
That's when you're creating an app and you drag your data files into it.
Right into the
So
app. Okay. Yep.
it becomes part of the app. So if you go
Okay.
ahead
Yep.
and click on that, you'll see,
Okay. Yep.
and if you look down in the lower left, you see those are the two data sources. One of them is
Yep. It's my boss, Hugo.
Data Connect.
I pick on Hugo all the time. In this case, it was really him. I got you now, pal. I got you now. Finally, finally, all my years of blaming you, and it pays off.
Hmm. And you can
Okay.
see there's the attached file.
Yep.
So that's a file that you would need to deal with.
So now he'd be out of luck. He can't possibly do an app now because the cloud doesn't support attached files. Or what would Hugo need to do now in order to make sure that this thing continues to work when we move these apps to the cloud?
He would just need to take that file or whatever those files are and store them in a space.
Okay, so he'd go to the space, go to data files, and then just drag or drop to data files instead.
Yeah.
Easy breezy.
So
Don't worry, Hugo. I'll do the heavy lifting on that for you, man.
yeah, this is just giving you a heads up in terms of some of the things that are going to break.
Gotcha, man. That's fantastic.
So
And
if
we,
you go back to the summary,
okay, yep. I know where to go too.
you see the flag scripts, lower left quadrant.
Yep.
Okay, so script flags are configurable, but what you can see here is that you have you see the flagged items, warning, data connection has a username,
Um, I'm not seeing where's
the table.
this table. Oh,
Yeah,
down here or this table.
that table, the
Okay.
flagged items.
All
So
right.
you see, you've got three apps that have data connections that have a username as part of it.
Okay. Yep.
And then you can see you've got the one with the file attached.
Right.
And the other one is that you've got two apps that are using web files.
Okay.
And Qlik Cloud doesn't support web files.
Okay.
So if you click on the Internet Data Connect, you can see,
Filter it right down. Good old green, gray, white associative engine. Loving it. Loving it.
and
Okay.
these actually look like some of our apps. So I guess that's why they wrote new ones for cloud.
That that could be it. That could be it. I won't mention any names, but I'm looking right at you.
So you can go back to the summary
Okay.
and you see we've got 1,000. I'm looking at the unidentified sources, which is the lower right
All
grid.
right.
So those are the ones we talked about before.
Right. Okay.
Um, Local mapped QVDs. So if you go ahead and click on that,
Ooh, that's a lot of QVDs that are local.
it is.
Okay.
And change it back to the folder display type.
Yep. Okay.
So these are local or mapped drives. What
Okay.
that probably means is that you have in your data connections, you use like those hidden shares
Right.
or using mapped drives in Windows.
Yep. And which is exactly what we did because, dude, we filled up our drive. We broke our C drive at one point, filling it up
Right.
with all these unused QVDs that Hugo was generating. Not me. Not me. Mine were perfect. It was Hugo.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that's absolutely what it is. We mapped a drive because we needed more space.
I'm starting to feel like a fortune teller here.
Man, you're airing all my team's dirty laundry.
Oh, on air,
Yeah. Mhm.
literally on air. Okay. So let's go back to the,
Summary?
yeah, or do we want to look at the storage profile?
Sure. I got nothing but time for you, buddy, because this is fun stuff.
Okay, click on the storage profile.
Okay?
All right. And this is showing you where all of your data is.
Okay?
And you can see over here in the table on the right, it's
Yep.
telling you what connections it found, how many QVDs it found, and how much storage space.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yep.
Looks like the QVD count's not quite working right, so I'll have to fix that. But you see how you have on your server, you see how you have that E:\\\.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
why it's showing up as like a local or mapped drive.
Yep. Ooh, man, I get to throw my buddies Clever and David under the bus. Look at that. Look at all this mass storage and stuff.
Yeah. So go back to now there's a summary tab in the center section there.
Okay. Yep.
So that's giving you really just high level metrics that you've
Yep.
got, you know, number of QVDs. But the other things that you see is,
Wow.
QVDs in use, archives, because one of the things that is common, I'm going to jump around. Let's go back to the summary.
This summer.
Yeah, the summary button.
Okay.
And you see on the left side down, you see dev/archive folders in the middle.
Okay. Yep.
So what this does is it flags folders that have like test or back or some of those other ways that people sort of squirrel away data
Yep.
and saying, oh, well, I don't want to delete it. I just want to keep it for now. And eventually, yeah, I'll do something about that. And eventually never comes. So if you look at this, you see um, in that table in the heading, you see displaying 99 connection folders and 1,790 physical folders. But you can sort that by storage. The other thing that you can do is you can tell it to ignore the empty folders.
How would I tell it to ignore empty folders?
There's a filter at the top left. You see
Okay.
folder is empty. Just say false.
Neat. Okay.
Now it's only showing you folders with content.
Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.
And you can see
I've
all the
got
QVDs all
99
up in
connections,
there. Yeah.
97 folders.
So one of the things that was probably one of the most difficult pieces to write on this utility was the matching between the reload logs and the QVD files.
Okay.
Because translating from a folder connection name to a UNC path and dealing with capitalization, connectors that are having folder connections that overlap, they're the same, pointing to the same place
Okay.
or things like that. So all of that had to be translated to UNC paths.
Wow.
So the script log parser was took a lot of hours.
You telling me you didn't just like do that during lunch while you're eating a ham and cheese sandwich? Is that what you're telling me?
No. Yeah, no, no. Actually, the way this thing started was that I was on an engagement and they'd lost their entire BI staff.
Wow.
And so I came in with the team and we migrated from QlikView to QlikSense.
Okay.
And then they wanted some new development. And part of this was just, I had no idea what we were working with.
Yeah.
So I built this basically because I needed it.
I bet. Yeah.
And that process started in 2020. So as I've developed it, other people have started using it. And I know that our platform services team um, uses this and they've actually funded a little bit of the development as a result.
Now, would it be, I mean, I'm gonna would it be way out of range to say you probably have spent months of development time building this?
Easily.
A year or under a year of time?
Um, it's probably about a man year
Wow.
if I think about it,
Yeah.
you know.
I could understand that because I've tried reading logs, all joking aside about moving to cloud. We've spent time trying to read logs, trying to figure some things out, and I know there's some time involved there. So, man, I applaud your efforts on being able to put this type of complexity together from all of that data and figure out all of the data sources needed to be able to do something like this to make it look easy. We're making this look easy by clicking things and jumping to places. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine a lot of work that went into helping do this.
There are a couple other utilities that um, has been built in the services group, really around like when you're actually migrating applications to look at, the shared and private content and whether it's
Okay.
actually being used before you go through the process of migrating it. But that's probably a separate discussion.
Yeah. I could imagine there's probably a lot of private content that was built by people that don't even work at that company anymore.
Ah,
And then somebody's
yeah.
got to decide, do we even bother moving this stuff? Do we just back it off? Um,
And sometimes you see like new sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 27, 30, 5, 55, and they haven't been used since they were created.
yeah, I've done a lot of those as part of demos, especially like, let me just build a new sheet. Let me build a new sheet. Let me build. Yeah, and then the app gets crazy.
Now, one
Um,
of the other things you may want to look at is over on the right side and with the buttons, there's a gray button towards the bottom that's marked
okay,
developer.
developer. Yep.
Click on that.
Okay.
So what that allows you to do is to search by field name
Wow.
across
Okay.
all of your QVDs.
What?
Um, you can just select a file base name. So if you were to click on something in the upper left, that's a file base name, like asset groups or asset
Okay.
centers.
Hang on a second. I'm losing my mind down here with some of these things. These are
Oh, wow. Yeah, why don't you sort it by field length, descending?
holy cow. Holy cow.
Query history.
Uh, dude, is
That's a
that a
beat.
problem?
Um, that's,
That's 15 billion.
yeah.
That, yeah. Is that going to be a problem for me if I try to do this in the cloud?
You might not be able to upload it.
Wow. Now, how would I, if I'm looking at this, let's come back to assets. Let's not forget to go to query history. I'll let you get back on track, but that has me worried, so I definitely want to come back. So you were asking me to look up here at asset groups or something?
Yeah, or just, I'm looking at billing documents.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, click on that.
Okay.
All right. And you can see that it is in just that one base name. And you can see
Okay.
those are your metrics. So it looks
Yep.
like you see the table information in the top and the center.
This. Yep.
Yeah, you see how it's not giving you QVD rows?
Right.
See how many locations it's in?
Yeah.
It's in 12 locations. So if you go and click on that button over on the right that says details,
Okay.
that'll show you each copy of it.
Wow. So
And
we
and this is where the
got
associative
the
engine is
same
really
base
helpful.
information from this QVD.
Hmm.
We actually now have it in like these 12 other places
Right.
where we've either copied or something or moved. Um, wow. Okay. And it looks like some of these actually have rows,
Hmm.
and some of these have a few rows. And dude, I can tell you exactly what this was if you care to know. Um,
Do I
So,
want to?
so our team does a lot with SAP and building accelerators.
Right.
And there's times, Walter, where we've exported data out of SAP, but somebody had a filter on, and we've only got 176 billing rows instead of 52,000 billing rows. Now, apparently, we're doing it way, way too often into different file names and have replicated the same data that we would definitely clean up before we move to the cloud. But yeah, that's where that came from, where we've run the same thing, but we had a filter on and we did not get all the data. And believe it or not, I found those problems when I was looking at the screen, like this is not how many billings we've had.
You
All
look
right.
over on the
Anyway,
right, you can
back to
see
your story.
is over on the right in that table, you can see it's telling you that some of these have been um, generated from different apps. So you can see
Yep.
you've got two of them aren't even published.
Almost like we've done the exact same thing over and over and over with different our different main vendors for the cloud.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yep. Wow. And you found that like lickety split, man.
Yeah.
Again, not my fault. Somebody else's totally.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to throw my buddy Dave under the bus for this one. Yeah, it's all Dave's fault.
Okay. So now all of a sudden you're getting a much clearer picture
Yep.
of, of what's going on. But
Yep.
another thing that comes up is go ahead and clear the table name selection in the top.
Yep.
And let's take a look at dependencies. So it's the bottom button on the right side.
Okay, this guy. Okay.
Yeah. In earlier in earlier versions of the app, it was called basic lineage.
All right.
It That's sort of a misnomer because lineage now has its own meaning.
Yes.
But what it does is if you look in the lower left and you see sources,
Okay. Yep.
so one of the things that comes up sometimes is that SAP connector that you have there. So click on that one. Okay, and you can see that it's only being used by that one app.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So sometimes the question comes up, I want to see all of the apps that rely on this file.
Okay. Now, why does it say four apps here, but I'm only seeing one, and this says four total apps?
I don't know. It could be a bug or it could be something that's just not displaying.
Okay. Because there may not be so in the table, there may not be something here that shows the uniqueness.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it could potentially be you've got the app name, these could be in four different streams or something. That same app could be in four streams and you're not showing stream. Oh no. Stream name
Or
is here.
actually, the other thing is that it could be that there's a bug in the display where I need to do like a distinct count of apps and,
Okay.
or something like that. So, you
Yeah,
know,
but this would tell me there's got to be something that is unique, but you're not showing the field that would make it unique in the table.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, at one site, something came up where they were getting upset because the API usage for Salesforce had gone through the roof.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, we need to know every app that's extracting from Salesforce.
Right.
And that was as simple as coming to this display, selecting the Salesforce connector,
Yep.
and boom, there was the culprit.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you clear that selection up top on the
Okay.
source file name, what you can do is if you have any monitors here, so I would say go ahead and on the task status, you'll
This.
see the column there. You just select finished success.
Okay.
All right, so these are the ones that have actually been reloaded. And you can see that the first one, the operations monitor, has generated almost 400 source files. That second app, Exasol, uses like 48 QVDs.
Okay.
So if you were to select that, okay,
Okay.
so actually it generates 48 QVDs. I'm sorry,
Yep. Yeah.
I misspoke. But you can see those are the QVDs that it generates.
Yep.
And again, you see that QVD is used and it doesn't look like any of them are being used.
Clever. This was probably a test,
Yeah, I mean,
especially when I see TPCH. He was probably testing to see how fast we could stream that data out of a source.
realistically,
Yep.
showing this on a dev test box is, Well, yeah, we've got that kind of problem going on. It's a test box. I mean, come on. But
We
when you
do a
start,
lot of things in our team, Walter. I'm not gonna lie. We might do a lot of things in our team. We
yeah,
get a demo running, we're like, we're just gonna leave it alone. Like it worked. We got the video we needed to shoot for whatever reason. We'll leave it there.
right.
But even for us, like in all seriousness, when we got ready to move to the cloud, we had to think, what is it we're moving? Uh,
Oh, definitely.
this process would have helped us a ton in the years that we've spent moving to the cloud.
Oh man, I should have told you about this sooner.
I know, I know. What kind of friend are you, man? All right. So
All right.
how can I get back to looking at that thing where I had like the 15 billion deal?
Oh, okay. Well, you can either go to the sheet navigator or you can just go to the summary button.
Go to the summary. Okay.
And then it was developer. It was the gray button.
Developer. Yep. And,
Okay.
yeah, and this was my guy.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, this can't be good.
No.
This is going to give me an issue trying to go, no, what else can I do with this to try to figure out where am I generating this data, et cetera? Like when I see this table,
Hmm.
this is a little bit crazy, especially this one with the 72 billion rows.
Yeah.
Um,
And you see you've got a few of these.
yep,
So
yep.
you can go to details or dependencies. Dependencies will tell you where, so you can see that's,
Okay.
so this is where it came
This
from.
is the app that's that makes total sense. Yep, this was our team built a Snowflake usage app to
Hmm.
help customers track consumption. Um, and yeah, query history was an issue. We were at one point, our team was tracking like 5 Qlik Snowflake instances and bringing back every single bit of information about query history for all time. And that would be an issue for us then, right? How
Yeah.
would I see what file size is? Because you know, maybe I didn't see that it was 15 billion bytes of size. How would
Okay.
I see like the file size for this thing now?
This isn't showing you that, is it? So if you go to the sheet navigator up top
Okay,
and just go to overview, and then you can go to QVD file details. It's a green tile.
this guy.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 3.2 gigabytes a piece.
Wow. Yeah, that might be an issue. And it turns out I know what the problem was there. We were bringing all that detail back. And dude, it was taking a long time to show the details
Hmm.
because we hadn't thought about the fact that it just kept growing and growing and growing, tracking query history for all time. Um, and so what we ended up doing, I don't know if this is what you would recommend for a customer. We looked at the fact, hey, there'd be once a month we might actually look at the query history. It was only if the query was a problem. And so what we did on our end, and you tell me if this was right, we ended up building like an ODAG situation where if I needed to get to query history, I
Yeah.
would pick a user, I would pick a command type that I would see. We rolled up and said, hey, we'll give you an aggregate of here's how many selects, here's how many inserts, here's how many updates, yada, yada, yada.
Hmm.
Here's the user, here's the time involved, and then we'd go look them up from a historical QVD uh,
Right.
instead of putting it in the main app.
That's a great use of ODAG.
Okay.
That is really an ideal use of it where um, you need to know where you can look for things.
Yep.
You don't necessarily need to search everything under the sun.
Right.
You can narrow it down some. I mean, just because you can create these massive data stores doesn't necessarily mean that you should.
It's a good thing. Yeah. And so we tended to get away with a lot of this stuff because we just keep adding space to our machine so that we can make these things bigger. At some point we needed to add more memory too. Uh,
Right.
and we just kept collecting data, and then we got to the point where like, man, we got to make a change. And so in a situation like this with a customer, um, we were able to quickly find that, identify where it's coming from, and we saw the application that was generating it. You would talk to them, hey, you know, let's figure out an alternative method. We could have broke those up. We could have done QVDs by year,
Right.
a QVD by user. Like you can segment out those QVDs and find an alternative method than one giant, massive thing that would all be in memory at the same time.
And that's actually another area where this has proved useful, and that is that just helping companies segment the data.
Yep.
Because, when you talk about your reporting analysts and your BI analysts, they don't necessarily have the techniques down in terms of segmenting data and having their data load automatically only
Yep.
pull a certain amount of data from
Right.
like these segmented QVDs.
So yeah, it would seem then like if an organization is thinking about moving to the cloud, you're not there to literally just pack their whole house and move the whole house to the cloud.
No.
You're trying to help them think, and a company should take advantage of the fact we're going to be moving. Let's think about what our life is going to look like in our new house versus what
Mhm.
our life looked like in our old house, right? There's usually a reason anyway that you were moving. And it wasn't because of the fun of moving.
No,
There's
moving's
usually a
not.
reason. Life is going to be different. I've joked a lot in recent videos where I pretend like I got parachuted into some organization. Their team had been, their old team was gone. I was coming in blind to the environment. And I think a lot of organizations could be in that boat where the original architects had an infrastructure. They've now long since left. And this could be a good time for them to have you help them re-architect who they want to be in the new house. Is that kind of a big part of what you do?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that situation you described, I've lived it,
Yeah, I
you
bet.
know. And, I've gone into multiple clients where it's just like, okay, let's figure out what you've got, you know? And then between that and just the monitoring utilities that you can get as part of Qlik,
Yep,
you can get a really clear picture of what's going on. But you have to have really the experience to be able to interpret these things.
yep.
That's why we don't just provide this tool to everyone.
I'm gonna
It's
I'm
part
gonna
of
stop
it.
sharing my screen. Yeah, so if somebody is moving to the cloud,
Hmm.
or if they're an account manager and you have a customer moving to the cloud, this is the kind of thing that we do offer as a service.
Right.
um, because I tease that I installed it, and I literally did. I dropped a QEF in, I pressed load. I would have had no idea what I was using, and I probably wouldn't have an idea what I need to do to fix it.
Right.
So this is a service. How do they line this service up? Like they say, I want Walter. What do they do to say, I want Walter to
No,
help me?
no, it's called our data management review.
Okay.
Um, so what it does is, this tool is a large part of it, but it's really just a starting point.
And when you say it's called data management review, so they would book a professional services agreement for a data management review. They might not even be moving to the cloud.
Right.
They could do this anyway to get a grasp on the environment. So if you are a customer, you're an account manager that hey, the old BI team has moved,
Hmm.
and there's if you're a new analytics director or analytics VP, and you want to get a grasp on what's going on, they could do this type of review just to get a grasp on their environment,
Yes.
right? And then if they're moving to the cloud, this is an underlying part of that, but this isn't the whole thing that you would do to help them, right?
Right. I mean, data management isn't always about moving to cloud. I mean,
Hmm.
that's been the focus just now. But I had a situation just recently where they were implementing a self-service environment. And what they did was they were providing their user analysts with completed data models.
Okay.
And
Now,
so,
how did they present them a completed data model as opposed to individual QVDs that are part of a model?
so what they did was they created, in effect, model directories.
Okay.
So it would have all of the QVDs that were relevant for that particular application.
Gotcha. So if I wanted like healthcare surgical, there would be a surgical directory,
Hmm.
and I would know then as the analyst, I just read every QVD that's in that file, in that subfolder.
Right. And
Okay.
all
Interesting.
of the work was done in their data warehouse, and then there was just an automated extraction
Yep.
that would
Yep.
go to where they are, and it was all templated. And so what we wound up doing together was creating segments of the QVD inventory so that each group had a version of the inventory that was specific to their need. So they could go
Interesting.
in and they could have, in effect, sort of a catalog
Okay.
of what data they're allowed to work with.
Very neat. Okay.
And so last I heard, they're loving it.
I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah, that's a neat approach. And
And the other thing is you're not giving analysts access to your data warehouse. You're only giving them the data that they need. And within the team, because it's QVDs that were extracted all at once, you don't get into that game of my report's better than yours because our numbers are different.
right. Yep, I wrote a blog recently about the whole QVD generation process. And it's a tough fight to talk with customers. I just want my users to get access to my warehouse. Like, I don't think you do. Like, if you don't know SQL, I don't think you really just want them to see thousands of tables out in a data warehouse. They're
Yeah,
not going to know what to do with the things and join them correctly. Because that in a data model situation, I could have three that are coming from here, two that are coming from there, four that are coming from there, five that are coming from here. And the great thing about the associated model, it will connect them all.
yeah,
And they don't care about the join types and the problems of joins. And you're not giving them access to the kingdom. They're not bringing the system down by writing select star, select star, select star from everything. So that's an interesting approach to just template it and auto load the fields. That's one of the things that I do is I'm just going to go read all the data out of the tables and put them, get a start, and then I start working the model. So what
right.
other things would you do as part of a data management review if they are moving to the cloud then?
Well, part of it is looking to see which files aren't going to migrate
Okay.
because we do have size limits in the cloud.
Yep.
So you'll want to look at QVDs that are above a certain size, and you'll want to look at them and see why they're that size.
Right.
So once you start doing that, you may find that at one point we were looking at these and you saw that you had the field lengths and the field tags on it and things like that. So you might find that you've got these really long free-form descriptions
Yep.
in a large table. And it's just kind of like your query history that you
Yep.
were talking about earlier. In that particular case, yeah, you want to keep that because that's valuable information. But sometimes you're just carrying stuff along because someone along the line said, well, we're going to bring this information forward just in case somebody needs it.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many apps I've seen where it's just like, you use one of our partners, Modio, Rob Wunderlich,
Okay. Yep.
has his QSTA
Yep.
app analyzer. One of the most eye-opening things is to run that against an app and see how many of the fields just aren't being used and how much storage space is involved.
Every now and then I've had a few. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Well,
Okay.
actually, one of these days I'm going to run the app analyzer against this app. And the truth of it is I'm as guilty as anyone. I mean, there's all kinds of information still that's in this app that could be valuable that I leave in there intentionally because someone might need it.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, that's one of the things that I struggle with a lot. When I bring the data, I assume it's a decentralized world.
Hmm.
Somebody may or may not end up winning in the future. I sure wish there was a way that I could say, here's the information that's here. Here's information that would be available. Press this button and I'll magically change the load to add that one or two other fields that you want now, Walter. Instead of bringing you 500 fields out of tables,
Yeah,
we're only using 20 of them right now because I'm afraid 480 might get needed at some point. But yeah,
yeah,
well, I had my buddy Rob on one time,
yeah.
um, walk through QSDA Pro and the things that it's phenomenal in helping as well and finding those things. And I loved its approach. Like I would often comment fields out in the script, and I got to worry about comment, the commas at the end of the lines and screwing things up. And I love the way it's like, hey, drop field. It just
Yeah.
generates the script to drop the field afterwards, right? Like keep it all there for loading to make your life easy, and then
Mhm.
we'll just drop the unused ones, and then you take out the one you don't want to drop.
Yeah, that's my plan.
Hmm. Yeah.
But, lately I've been making a series of changes to it, mostly to assist in this whole cloud migration issue.
And so let's say I bring you in, we do this data management review, you help us figure it out. Um, do you actually provide services to help them do the move?
We can.
Okay.
We can. That's
Is
actually
that a separate service or is that okay?
a separate service because, the data management review is pretty well defined in terms of, what's involved. You
And
know,
how long would that project go on typically?
um, it would probably be about a week.
Okay.
And some of that is, contiguous. It might not be a full week. It would be spread out over period of time because one of the things that you might wind up doing is fine tuning. So it might in your environment it might take a while to run,
Yep.
and we're just not going to sit there and wait for it and bill you by the hour. So we do this at a fixed price. So we're going to be efficient in terms of how we do
Okay.
this. And it's not really so much an hourly thing as it's, a certain number of credits you'd have to talk to your solution lead. It's
Okay.
not a huge number of credits. And what that does is that encompasses getting the tool up and running,
Right.
which is not always as simple as it was for you. Sometimes it's more complicated. And sometimes there's some fine tuning involved and a lot of discussion about, what do you want it to have surveyed and things like that. And then there's the time interpreting the results.
Okay.
And potentially, after you've interpreted the results, it might be, well, okay, we know we're going to get rid of these things. Let's remove them from the picture.
Okay.
Let's not survey those areas. So
Right.
it could be, all right, let's run this a few times and let's start narrowing down what we want to look at because as you analyze this, you get a better idea in terms of what's of value, what the problem areas are, and what kinds of things can you do to
Right.
remediate.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Um, and so let's say that I was going to bring you in. I'm at company ABC. We're going to bring you in. Do I have to have somebody available every minute of the time with you? Would I have to allocate that, or is some of this you guys go do your thing and then you present back?
It could be either.
Okay.
And part of that depends on whether or not we're going to get access to the environment.
Right.
Because sometimes, like, you won't let me touch your environment. So,
This is
you
true. This is
know.
true. I was sharing from my screen.
That's right. So, if it gets into a situation where we need to do some remote control or we're
Yep.
completely hands off, I mean, those are just variables in
Yep.
the mix there.
Sure.
So, you know, it's not like the same every time. You're a unique individual, just like everyone else.
I'm a little bit unique. This is true.
I love the tie.
I got to class the place up a little bit, Walter.
I hear you.
All
But
right.
as far as, one of the areas that we can help customers with is just strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, after you've done a few cloud migrations, you know what's involved. And,
Right.
one of the areas where I think professional services is particularly valuable is there's certain things that in most customers' worlds, they're only going to do once.
Yep.
And the amount of time they need to invest in learning how to do these things, they'll never recoup.
Right. Yeah.
It's much easier to contract with our services team
Mm-hmm.
to do that thing, and then we'll do a knowledge transfer afterwards in terms of, here's what we did, and here's how we did it, and here's why we did it.
Yep.
And then this way, if issues come up, the customer knows what they can do, or they can contact us and re-engage us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I could imagine. I know I had a good friend, and as he got ready to move to the cloud, he was a little bit afraid. Security was a little different.
Hmm.
Spaces and streams were different. Shared space, managed space, like what are we getting into? And especially, what I've seen is Qlik View was very much an IT centric process.
Yes.
Give me your 95-page requirements document signed in blood from your director. We'll build it. We'll say it's finished. ClickSense was much more moving to a decentralized environment where there could be data architects, application data modelers that would bring the data through. Then there could be designers, there were coders who could build master items. And moving to the cloud, you now have other things available,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, I could see that it was very overwhelming for him. Like, man, if I just move this app, but now the security is wrong, I'm in trouble. And there was hesitation from his point. So I'm imagining that you probably encounter some customers or architects or managers that are like, I'm afraid. Like I'm afraid because I do not understand that new world.
Right.
Um, and when you say you help them with strategy, I kind of dig that because I think they need that. Like nobody wants to make that move if they think they're going to be uncomfortable or unsafe,
Right.
right?
And part of it is that when you change platforms, sometimes you have to change the way you do things.
Absolutely. Yep.
But with cloud, I mean, it has so many capabilities. I mean, I just love being able to monitor a chart.
Hmm.
It's just like I look on our internal site and I can look and see what my engagements are. And I have chart customized the way I like it.
Yep.
And it's just, okay, oh, this one's running out of money, or this one's about to expire, or this,
Yep.
things like that.
And you might want to make sure those chart names are unique then, if they're going to share the same. Last thing I need is three bar charts that all have the same name in my homepage.
It's
So now I teased before, like, hey, I'm going to call the account manager, say I want Walter. They're really going to ask for a data management review
right,
or account managers. If you've got a customer who's intimidated by the move, be sure to reach out and try to schedule a data management review. And Walter, I would want you, we're BFFs now, but are there other people in professional services? Because Walter's calendar is probably going to get full. Are there other people in professional services that help with data management reviews as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of what I'm doing is I've been putting together the tool. And just because I'm the tool builder doesn't mean you always want me. There are other people that can interpret the results. As I've mentioned, our platform services team uses this, so they understand it really well.
Yep.
So if you decide that you want Qlik to manage your infrastructure or your cloud environment and things like that, they know how to do all of this.
Yeah.
And so part of what I do is enablement for other consultants, for customer staff, and so on. It's very specific to the situation.
Yep. So what's one last thing you would say to customers, um, eh, th- to think this through? When you've met with customers talking this through, has there been one specific thing maybe you could think of that really made the light bulb go on for them about moving to the cloud?
Um, they feel more comfortable that they know what issues they need to deal with.
Hmm.
It's not just a lift and shift. It's like, okay, or as I've joked with you, is before you call the movers, you clean your house.
Hmm.
You start
Yeah.
taking out the junk. So it demystifies what's involved and what you're actually dealing with. So it gives you actionable information in terms of getting ready to move.
Yeah. Good. That's a good one. I love the term demystify. I think that there's a lot of fear. I think customers are smart enough. They don't think there's just a magic button because part of it will be processes could be different. You can have better processes in the cloud than what you thought you could do on-prem anyway. And I like the way you tied that up. Like, the amount of time that platform services, other professional services people have put into learning all of these things, you never get that time back if you're going to make the move once.
Right.
It makes a lot more sense to be thinking that through. So, Walter, I appreciate your time, man. Dude, this tool that you've built is remarkable. I wish we had had it when we started our road a long time ago because a lot of the things that you brought that we found like in no time were absolutely issues that we faced and we just like, oh my gosh, we gotta fix this.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah, better to find out beforehand than afterward.
yeah, and I mean we have access to every, my team's got access to any resource in the company we need. But yeah, we went through a lot of hair pulling. I used to have long flowing locks of hair and and pulled that out over time.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear you.
So yeah, that's hey, we look good together, man.
I,
Uh,
you know, I think we have the same barber.
there you go. Um, so Walter, thank you so much for your time, not only being generous with your time today so that we can get this word out to people, because I think the service that you offer is much, much needed. If you're a customer out there or a manager out there for a team and you're considering it and you're like, I'm afraid of this, definitely try to reach out to your account manager, or talk to your SA about how can you get a data management review scheduled to help you plan for the cloud and understand the things. I think the time that it's going to take you to think through that move is going to be well worth it. Even if you don't move, it's going to be worth it to understand your environment because I've heard more and more lately, where, hey, a guy who's been in that Qlik environment for 15 years has left, he's retired. You end up having to hire somebody cold off the street, help them understand the environment you're working in.
Mm,
If you're account manager, don't hesitate to make sure that this is done so that your customer is going to have a good experience moving to the cloud as opposed to a bad experience moving to the cloud with all the baggage that they should have left at the other house.
exactly.
For everybody out there, as always, man, I sure hope you have a great day.